Todd V is the biggest pickup artist in the world. He's even had PewDiePie react to his infield. That's how big he is. And if you don't know, somehow, you've been living under a rock, PewDiePie has over 110 million subscribers. And this guy is reacting to infield footage of Todd V approaching girls. Now, what PewDiePie had to say was not exactly positive, and Todd V's gotten a lot of criticism, being called cringy and weird and pushy and, basically a street harasser, etc. I'm not saying these things, but other people have said these things. What the general culture says about Todd V isn't necessarily accurate. Culture does not like pickup artists. They have a bias thinking they're creepy, and some of them are. But I'm an actual dating coach who actually goes out, approaches tons of women, and I've had a lot of success. And so me and Charisma King, another very successful dating coach, are going to break down Todd V's infield from the perspective of someone who's on the inside of that cult.
Yeah, I think he's really talented personally. That's just my 2 cents. I think he's really talented. I think he knows what he's talking about. I do think he could be a bit of a narcissist at times, but I mean, who in the industry really can't? I mean, most girls go for that kind of energy to begin with. It's confidence. A lot of his advice is very hard hitting and it works really well. It's to the point. There's honestly, I don't see anything. I honestly don't see anything wrong with his advice whatsoever.
Let's see if this changes your mind. We're going to look at some Todd V infield that he posted recently to promote his Verbal Game Academy. And we're going to take a look and see, is PewDiePie and the general culture, are they right that he's a cringe lord that cannot get hot girls? There's no fucking way. Or is he just being outcast by general society because he's been labeled as a pickup artist and people want pickup artists to be creepy? I'm going to be as unbiased as possible in looking at this. So without further ado, let's just look at the footage.
Excuse me. Hi. Absolutely love your look. So very elegant, Miami, but not quite. I'm guessing I have to go in a minute. Actually, I don't know. You and I might not get along, but I feel like you won't be boring. I'm not boring. Okay.
So what do you feel about that opener? What do you feel about that opener?
I don't like the fact he said "excuse me," but "excuse me" is such a minor thing, and also it does seem a little bit try hard in certain ways. To be fair, I've seen a lot of. It's not terrible. To be fair, you and me have talked about this infield before. I'm neither. Honestly, I'm pretty neutral on it. I'd have to see how this goes because I don't do this kind of approach ever. Usually I'm a lot more either direct or I'm direct indirect with the way I do things. I never do an approach like this. Like, I love your elegant look because this is something that I've seen guys do before in the past as clients, and it annoys the crap out of me because there's a certain type of mannerism and certain type of way of moving. If you want to do something like this, they'll pull it off. But it's not the words themselves that make it work. It's the fact that you have to come across as you have to put it off in the sub communication, if that makes any sense.
So I think that the problem with this opener is Todd V talks about how it's important not to give away your power in the beginning, right? You don't want to give away all your power by being too direct. And so he says, be more subtle. And he's doing some push pulls. But you know what's ironic is he's putting in so much effort that he's giving away more power than if he just were direct. Just like, hey, I like your elegant look, and just left it at that and gave a pause and let her respond. Because he said a whole fucking paragraph. Like, he's starting a poem before he even gave her the chance to respond at all, right? He just went into this whole spiel, this whole like chess match, like this whole sequence of moves without even giving her a chance to breathe. And I think it makes him look like he's trying way too hard to make her like him.
Most guys don't act. I absolutely love your look. So very elegant, Miami, but not quite. I'm guessing I have to go in a minute. Actually, I don't know. You and I might not get along, but I feel like you won't be boring. I'm not boring. Okay, I'm not.
So I'm not boring. That's actually good. She's qualifying there, right?
Yeah, that's not bad whatsoever.
Hey, that's a good sign because she's falling into the frame that he's setting. She's not resisting it. So he's saying, you're not going to be boring. A bad sign would be she says, oh, I'm very boring, right? Then she's going against the grain. She doesn't want to go along with what you're doing. She doesn't want to be in rapport with you. She wants to clash heads. That's a sign that she's not hooked yet, right? That she's not really into it yet. So that's a good sign.
and trying overtly not to qualify would be a far worse one. I appreciate that. Hey, I'm Todd. What is your name? What's that? Todd? Todd, nice to meet you. Do you mind if I join for a second? I have to go in a second, though. So that means you're either like...
So what do you think of him going to sit down with her in that way?
I think that honestly, in this situation, a time constraint would be... I mean, it's not a bad thing, but he kind of now shot himself in the foot because he can't hang out there that long without making it seem weird. Mm-hmm. I think that he should have honestly given it more time. Sitting down, though, is not bad. The sitting down part is good. It's just that now he's like, he has to reassert the fact that he only has a second to stay. And it's coming across a little bit try hard.
Yeah, I agree. So, but the sitting down part is good. This is a very common mistake I get on boot camps. I'm sure you see this a lot. The guy just goes in, immediately sits down with a girl before he's even talked to her. And she's thinking, is this guy homeless? Is this guy a creep? Is this guy going to be pushy? You haven't established enough value for her to be comfortable with you sitting next to her. So you want to open first, talk for 15, 30 seconds, a minute, get to the point where she's receptive, and then ask to sit next to her to show that you're not some crazy person that's just going to like overstay your welcome and make her uncomfortable. It's important to be polite about that particular thing.
Incredibly cool or incredibly dangerous? I'm not sure which. Probably both. When you are incredibly cool or incredibly dangerous? I'm not sure which.
So what do you think of that line? You're either incredibly cool or incredibly dangerous.
It's actually not a terrible line. I actually kind of like it. That one I do like. It's again, see, the way he speaks is very similar to this. I know a lot of other guys that if they were to speak like him, like I've talked to this guy a lot in the past, and he does speak like this. So for him, this could work, but I don't think any other guy should be stealing his lines like this. I think that they should be trying to find their own version of this, something that does have this kind of an angle. By trying to steal his lines directly from him, I think a lot of people start sounding incongruent, but because he's consistently sounding like this throughout, it doesn't sound like he's trying to play games.
I think it's unique, which is good, right? No one talks like that, so it stands out, but it's kind of cheesy. You're incredibly cool or you're incredibly dangerous, right? It's a little bit try hard. It's a little bit over the top, trying to sound fancy and like it's just not very relatable. It's a little uncalibrated, in my opinion. And I also think the biggest criticism I have of Todd V's game is his tonality. His tonality is not really breaking rapport. It's not very certain. He doesn't speak with a lot of conviction. He's like, you're either incredibly cool or incredibly... No, like you're either incredibly cool or incredibly... Like he has to have some fucking emotion behind what he says. He sounds a little bored. He doesn't sound very masculine. He doesn't sound very sure of himself. And I know for saying all this shit, he's going to copyright strike this video, which I will happily challenge that because fuck you. False copyright strikes are fucked up. If anyone who doesn't know about that, he's copyright striked me before. He's copyright striked Alex about making videos reviewing him or analyzing him, which is half of fucking YouTube. Obviously, that's allowed and protected by fair use. But that's off topic. I guess I'm not happy about that. That's partly why I stopped making these coach versus coach videos, because it was a hassle. But honestly, I've changed my mind. Fuck that. Anyway, he doesn't sound like he has that much conviction or confidence in what he's saying. He doesn't sound super nervous, but he doesn't sound like passionate either. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, I agree, but in his defense, out of the two videos I've ever seen, these are the only two. There's only two infields that I didn't like of his, which this is one of them. This one I was kind of like neutral with. The other one was the one that what's his face posted up. It was the Penguin guy, and PewDiePie reacted to. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two infields that I saw where I was like kind of like with. In his defense,
yeah. The only problem is he doesn't have much infield on YouTube other than
not anymore. No,
videos, so
no.
It doesn't mean I have to be smug about it. Just like
that is one of the most arrogant statements ever. I'm like, oh, you're kind of arrogant. I'm like, no, just confident because I'm so amazing and so modest.
So what do you think about that?
Too competitive. The frame is too competitive.
That's funny. I actually think this was the best part so far.
You do?
Because he's teasing her in a way that's playful. She's buying into it, right? She's saying, no, just confident. And so it has a repartee, right? They're bantering. and I think it's good. I think this part's pretty good.
Well, so my big thing is like, obviously you have to, at some level, be challenging to the girl, but you want to also have a vibe of building with. And at this point, he hasn't done too much of that. He's been, the only thing I've heard from him throughout this entire conversation is him kind of just slightly bashing on her the entire time. If he does have any parts where he's actually, so it's push and pull, he's not really doing too much in the way of pull.
Right. But that might be because he sees her as the kind of girl that's standoffish. I think he said before the infield starts that she had like a resting bitch face. She didn't look like someone who wanted to be approached. She looked difficult to approach, which means he's being more, what would you call it? He's doing more push, right? He's being more challenging to match that.
That's fair.
I'm so amazing. I'm so modest.
So you live in Miami?
Half the time. I live in Miami half the time, New York half the time.
That's good.
Okay. Well, you're almost kind of my neighbor. You're at just far enough where like if
You're the little brother.
you're my little brother, yes.
Very cold, very conservative, but very educated.
Like if
Okay.
Little brother.
you're my neighbor. You're at just far enough where like
You're
if
the little brother.
you're my little brother, yes. Fair enough.
I think she's saying he's her little brother, right?
Yeah,
Why would
she's
she
trying to
be
do
the little
that,
brother?
but I think he's mishearing her on purpose.
Okay. And
I
when
can
she's
see him
saying
doing that.
when she's saying boring, cold, very conservative, she's talking about him, right?
That's what it sounds
That's what
like
it
to me
looks
too,
like.
yeah.
Which
it's
it's
also
funny.
show
He
test.
cut forward in the infield, and then he cut to the like. This has to be the worst part. She's saying he's boring, cold, and very conservative. Which I mean, I don't think that's the most inaccurate description of his general persona. But that's not a good sign. If a girl's saying you're boring and cold and conservative, like when it comes to having a one night stand, those are like the list of the traits that a girl doesn't want. Now, I don't know exactly why she's saying that, but that's certainly not a sign that she's like buying into it and she's really
Well,
like,
he's pushing too much at times, I think. So she's feeling a little combative. She
mm,
also has closed off body language. I think that she just feels like he's pushing too much, which she's smiling, which I wish I could see her facial expression. Then this probably could tell us a little bit more. But he's smiling like he's saying something we're not.
maybe.
Like if she's smiling and being like a little bit cocky with it, then I can see her being like making this into a playful thing or like a challenging thing. But man, I'm not sure at this point.
Cold, very conservative, but very educated.
Is that you, boring, cold, conservative, but educated? So notice here.
So, I mean, I like that he reframed it to be her because, I mean, you have to do something with that. You can't just be like, just take that. Well, actually, you could just take it and not be reactive. That would be fine. But she's coming in pretty hot. And so you have to either exaggerate it, revert it back to her. You could play into it and just talk about how extremely boring you are and how binary turns you on, like something like that. But turning on her is a valid option. Now, the fact that she said that is fucking horrible, right? That's a sign that she is not interested at all.
Hmm.
She basically just said he's dry, so it's kind of funny.
You're just far enough away that like it would if we like fell madly in love, we'd tease each other with the idea we're close and could see each other, but in reality it's still long distance. Introducing the theme.
Okay, what do you think of that technique?
Tease each other with the
There we
I
go.
don't know. He's cutting it up a little bit, so it's kind of hard to pick it up in like context. I'm kind of curious what she says after it. I think it's like if it could be said at the right times. If she's interested, if it's not over the hill with it yet, then it can be a little bit try hard, like trying to shove it into a certain frame. Then it will come across a little try hard.
I mean, he's doing a role play, right? He's trying to create the bubble of love, like it's us against the world. We're going to fall in love. And I think that is a good concept, right? That is a powerful tool, but the way he's doing it is it's like a little much, right? It's a little too try hard, a little too forceful, a little too pushy, trying to like assert this frame on her and make her have to accept it. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like it's scripted.
Not as long as it could be.
Fair enough. Well, I'll keep that in mind if you ever piss me off and be like, wait, we could be much further.
Could be.
Fair enough. Well, I'll keep that.
What do you think she means when she's saying we're not as far away as it could be?
Man, it could go either way, honestly. Like if I could see her body language a little better, she's been very still this entire time. Like she's been like in the same position this entire time. So she's not nervous. Like if she was nervous, she'd be fidgeting a lot more, which would mean that she's probably more into him, but she's been very still this entire time. She's also not shooing him away because if she wasn't interested, she's still feeling him out. Dude, honestly, it could be a shit test.
Okay, good. To be fair, though, women will. I mean, I see this with clients who still, they have progress to make. Their game isn't very good yet. Girls will entertain them. This happened to me. A girl would entertain me for an hour, but she was never interested. She just thought it was kind of funny to watch the show. She came in to see the circus. She was never going to have sex with me, but like, why not just watch? Because this guy's kind of interesting and he's funny in his own way. And I can just enjoy the interaction, but there's no, I'm not into him at all.
I didn't mind if you ever pissed me off and be like, wait, we could be much further away, my dear. It's subtle, but who's chasing whom, right? What is the frame of everything?
I don't think she's chasing him at all. What do you think?
Not yet. Not really. Like I wouldn't say yet.
Yeah, no. I don't see any signs of her chasing. It doesn't look like she's putting more effort into the interaction. It looks like he's putting more effort into it.
Like I feel like I know what this says about me. When I was in Boston, almost every girl I dated went to Harvard. So like that's something guys would say is like, ha ha ha, look at me.
Well, I can relate to that one. What do you think about that line?
Here, play it one more time.
He said every girl when I was in Boston that I dated went to Harvard.
It's pointless to say, and it's a little try hard. It's just like it's obvious that you're trying to qualify.
DHV?
Yeah,
she's attempting to DHV, but it's too on the nose, right? It's like obvious what he's doing. It's like, look at this watch, by the way. This is a Rollie, by the way. Do you like the Rollie? Do you like it?
There's a way of qualifying that makes it work, and that's a little bit too on the dot, honestly.
Usually it's like if she asks you something and the answer is something that's a DHV, right? If she asked like what kind of girl he dated, then that would make sense. But he's doing it kind of out of nowhere and trying to force it in, and that makes it feel forced.
Me, I'm so cool.
Makes it seem gamey.
What did I do to make it not bragging? Right before I'm like, I don't know what this says about me, but I actually acted like I'm like kind of ashamed by it. Kind of like I'm embarrassed by it, or I think it's kind of cheesy or silly.
I didn't get
which
that.
Then makes me saying it afterwards like non-brag.
I'd say that would be true, but I didn't get that from the way he said it.
But I still got that information into the conversation. And given this girl's blueprints, given how she sees the world and who she is, that's the kind of thing that is impressive for her, as we'll see in a second. I appreciated the conversation. Is impressive for her, as we'll see in a second.
Hey, what?
I appreciated the conversation. Yeah, so it says you.
That actually sounds good, right?
Yeah, it sounds good. That's not
right. It sounds like she's buying into it, right? She's buying into it. Like, oh, so you have high standards. You're picky. So it actually sounds like the Harvard thing that had a good effect, surprisingly.
Yeah, I agree.
Appreciated the conversation. Yeah, so it says you have high standards. Someone doesn't go to Harvard, they can't date you. She received the message I was putting out there quite well. I used to. I still have high standards. I used to have high standards in that way. I don't care as much about the resume as I used to when I was younger. Does that make sense? Like now I care. I want someone ambitious. I want someone intelligent. Huh?
Okay. Well, how do you feel about that?
I'd actually give it a neutral. She's challenging a little bit, but I'd give it like a neutral response.
Okay. I think based on her tone and the fact that she's saying, is this a job interview? It sounds like she's not in rapport with him at all, right? She doesn't feel a connection at all. She doesn't feel like they're in the same wavelength. So they're butting heads, but it's not really in a super flirty way. I'm not getting a sexual energy from it. I'm getting what is this? A job interview? Usually when I hear that, I don't end up sleeping with the girl. Usually. It's not a big green light. So I would say it's not a horrible sign, but it's not a good sign. That's my take.
I'd agree.
Ambitious, I want someone intelligent. Huh? And this is funny because I haven't mentioned.
And look at her body language.
Huh?
It's like very still. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's confrontational. Her body language is like, it's not flowing or comfortable. It's like, I'm fighting with someone. That's what it looks like, right? I'm in an argument with someone. That's what her body language looks like to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is funny because I haven't mentioned her at all in this, right? But since this is a job interview, she's automatically putting herself in this category. She's automatically considering whether she meets my standards.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either.
That's an interesting take. I don't think when a girl asks, is this a job interview? I mean, I like his positive delusion in a way. Like he's interpreting everything as being a good thing. So in a way that can actually work in your favor because it means you're going to go for it, right? You're going to ask for the number. You're going to ask her to come back to your place because he's assuming she's into him, even though he's getting all these red lights. So maybe there's a meta lesson, right? There's a deeper lesson that even though what he's saying is wrong, the fact that he has so much self-belief that when a girl says, is this a job interview? He's like, yes. So she thinks that she's trying to apply to have a chance to date me. The fact that he's thinking that way might actually, there might actually be a lesson there.
Whether she fits this criteria that I'm putting out there, right? Oh my goodness. No, standards have elevated, if anything, but I care more about the experience I have with someone than about, what alma mater they hail from.
Fancy words.
Might not be the best indicator.
Fair enough. I feel like you might not be too bad though.
If I want,
I said I feel like you might not be too bad. We can be friends. I just won't give you any contact info, so you can't stalk me. It'll be fine.
Okay, what do you think about that?
She needed more comfort, or more it is a little bit gamey. It's I don't think it was a good push necessarily, but I don't know. Sometimes when a guy's a different style of game like this, sometimes I can be surprised. He's very pushy with what he does, so I'm kind of curious what she'll say in response.
Look, pushy guys, to be fair, they do better than most guys.
That guy's a pull.
The reason is it's kind of like with sales, right? The best salesmen are the ones that are pushy and know when to back off. But the really good ones, the ones who do really well, are not the ones that are overly empathetic and overly worried about what the other person thinks. They're the sharks, the ones that are just always going for the close. They don't give a fuck, and they have low empathy. And that with women too, guys like that, pick up guys like that, they tend to do pretty well, even though a lot of girls are uncomfortable and don't like them, and they put a lot of girls off. Some girls just like the dominant energy, and that the guy just doesn't give a fuck. So that can work. The thing that stuck out to me about this is that he said, I'm not going to give you any contact info. So he's digging himself his own grave, right? He's digging himself in a hole. Because now when he asked for her number, she's like, you said you weren't going to give me contact info. So she's much more likely to just say no.
But
so why did he
make
say
a joke
that?
about it? He can make a joke and be like, oh, dude, I was fucking teasing you. If I was doing that, I would just say, dude, I was teasing you. It was a joke.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it helps. I think because then he has to think of a clever way out of that, right? He has to think of some way, well, now I do need, and maybe he has that planned. I guess we'll see. But why make it more difficult to get the number?
Well, it just feels he feels like he's lower value than the girl. So it does feel like he's trying to win her over the entire time, which I think is a very clear point. It's not I think somebody's higher value than another person. It's not so pushy or so obvious. It's a lot more subtle. And it just feels a lot more forceful, like he's trying to force the higher frame.
The higher value person generally puts in less effort, right? They don't need to win the other person over. It's already assumed that they would like them. So they're not going to do a bunch of fancy gimmicks. It's like he's doing a magician show, right? He's putting on a whole fucking show. Look at my tricks. Do you like me? Do you like me? And it's just too much effort.
I feel like you might not be too bad. We could be friends. I just won't give you any contact info.
Wait, did they skip ahead or did you skip ahead?
Yeah, I skipped ahead because we'd just seen it, but I had to go back because there was some more.
Can't stalk me. It'll be fine. I mean, have you looked at me?
So what was that supposed to be?
How's the vibe there?
That seemed confrontational.
Yeah, confrontational. He's trying to force a frame. And frame control is very important, but there's an art to it. It can't be forceful, right? It can't be I'm trying to, you have to do it. You have to be in rapport. And rapport means that you're when you're in rapport, there's a lot of signs. You kind of copy each other. You want to agree with the other person. Mm-hmm. Your body language will copy each other, which he's not copying his body language. All those things will happen subconsciously. And then the other person wants to fall into your frame. But when you're constantly trying to force, by the way, I'm beautiful. Have you looked at me? Or you're not going to stalk me? She feels that it's mechanical, right? That it's not genuine. And that puts her off.
Looked at me? right, and I love that exchange, right? So here again, I'm bringing up this idea we can be friends, but not more than that. So it's kind of a hint of a man-to-woman frame, but an idea of it won't happen. And her why would I stalk you? Have you looked at me? Right? It's a great way to pass certain shit tests, is just to act as though the answer is obvious. Like if she questions you on like your credentials in some way, like trying to verify your credentials, like why would I stalk you? Like, well, because I'm so attractive and this and this. Now you're trying to prove yourself. But you're like, have you looked at me? That actually isn't qualifying yourself, right? It's just being cocky in this like kind of non-specific way that can kind of work, right? But now she's going to give me an interesting shit test, which is like,
okay, boring.
Supposed to mean, right? Which is actually a real shit test and actually a pretty tough one to pass. Take a second actually and think about how would you try and pass that shit test, because it's a difficult one, and then we'll see how I pass it. I don't know. I was taking a page out of your arrogance playbook, and
it's pretty witty.
Yeah, that's not bad. That one's good. I like it because it's like you're arrogant, so I'm not allowed to be arrogant now.
All right, that was a good like something Hank Moody would say. I liked it.
Yeah.
And rationally, I saw you and thought you were beautiful, but I have plans and a life, and the odds are you probably would not live up to my standards. So if I was being totally rational, I wouldn't even come and said hi. But here we are, and I'm kind of glad I did.
Okay, what do you think of that?
Convoluted, but it was good. I don't think it was terrible. I think it's like.
I think he's hitting on the same note again and again and again, right? He's already said it. So he's trying to trying to go down this one little thread. It just needs to keep going down it that, oh, you might not be good enough for me. You don't need to say that a million fucking times. I also think his body language and delivery are not good here. He's fidgeting. He's very fidgety, and he's looking around. He's looking to the right. He's looking to the left. He's looking around a lot. He looks not comfortable. He looks uncomfortable.
Well, that's not looking left and right can be a sign that like he's like thinking of walking away. Like that's one thing that it could be good for. Like it's, but when you're trying to pass a shit test,
it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, you're thinking about like I could walk away any second. I think even Mystery called it, which I don't really think too much of personally, but he's a cool guy. But I don't like his theories. But he brought up this thing called a body rock, which a body rock there actually is some utility to it. Mm-hmm. Basically, like just give the feeling like you can walk away. So I can see that being a thing.
Rationally, I saw you and thought you were beautiful, but I have plans and a life, and the odds are you probably would not live up to my standards. So if I was being totally rational, I wouldn't even come and said hi. But here we are, and I'm kind of glad I did.
Well, you can take risks. I was with my AirPods.
I know.
Yeah, she's chasing him now.
I can have this in a bit.
And so here,
so that part looked good.
Yeah. She's now engaged in the conversation.
Yeah, more so than up to that point.
That I would have had to go check out the building afterwards, so I'm glad you didn't.
Just like walked away, having even less faith in women.
Yeah. And so back to the shit test of that I don't.
Okay, so same basic idea. Like she's more bought in right here. So this looks better.
Yeah. He
also leaned away when that happened, which I think was generally good body language because he was like leaning in a lot and kind of seemed like he's the one chasing her, and now being leaned back, it makes it look more even.
Well, I think he's in the set now. Actually hooked it.
I have a lot of faith in women. I just have a lot of faith in women to act like women. You know what I mean?
Not everyone. Not each of them acts that way.
I hope you act like a woman at times.
Well, she's now fidgeting a little bit herself.
Well, I mean, granted, we only just met, so let's take it slow. But if were we ever to become intimate, I hope you act like a woman during that time. And if there was,
okay, he said women with an E, which is funny. I hope you act like a woman. But okay, so he's sexualizing here. He's making a implication of sex, and he's not doing it overly directly. So I think conceptually that's good. But I think he's basically talking about feminism and like gender, right? Women don't act like women. That is such a topic that a lot of girls, it's going to trigger them. It's going to be very upsetting. It's going to break any connection. It's just not something you want to go down unless you have to.
But if were we ever to become intimate, I hope you act like a woman during that time. And if there was any doubt over the man to woman nature of this conversation, I have eliminated any doubt whatsoever there. So
That's the end of the clip.
Oh, okay,
so he didn't get the phone number. If you cut it off
Exactly.
right there, you didn't get the phone number.
There's
So
no
that's-
reason, right, from his perspective, and when we do infield too, if you get an infield, why would you not show? You show everything else. You're showing all these different bits. Why would you not at least show 5 seconds of him getting the number or getting a date or something? Because it didn't happen. So
exactly.
he's showing this video to promote his course as a great example of game, and he didn't even get the girl's number.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty weird, pretty sus, as the Zoomers say.
Yeah, so it didn't go so well as he was trying to indicate, but it's fine. He did do a lot of stuff that was very interesting and in their own way can be good. He was just very like, it was just too pushy. Like it's just too like gamey. That's the thing that was kind of bad about this. I feel like he must have been. I feel like he's really rusty in this.
Yeah, maybe
seen infield's
maybe
be a
he's
lot
gone
better
a
than
long
this.
time without doing game. Maybe he's like a tradcon now, right? Living with a wife and family, and he just doesn't do game. And so, but he's like, I need new content to promote the course, and that's the best he could do. That is possible. I'd like to see some older infield and review that, but it's not really available on YouTube as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So there is other infield that's definitely better than this, but there are some things that he generally does in all the infield I've seen, which is one, his vocal tonality is just kind of, it doesn't have that oomph to it, right? And it doesn't have that masculine energy. It doesn't have, much charisma, magnetism, things like that. The way he talks is a little like, hey, how's it going? It's a little nerdy. And then other than that, the other thing is his verbal game can be way too pushy, can be way too much like trying to force her to fall into the frame rather than just actually building a connection.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to our channels, hit the bell button.